Hello and welcome to another episode of So They Say. If you like the videos, give it a thumbs up and give me a subscription. It helps me know that you like the videos and I can carry on making more and more of them. Today we're looking at the Royal Hotel in Purfleet, or Purfleet upon Thames that it's now called. It's got quite a good history of strange things that are going on with the ghost side of it and the paranormal side of it, but also the whole area around there has got a very interesting history, and that's what we're going to look at. So the Royal Hotel actually began life as the Ship Inn in 1766, and then after that it went on for another sort of few years, and it changed its name to the Bricklayers Arms due to the industry that was going on in the area at that time. In 1848 the hotel changed its name to the Wingrove Hotel after some remodelling was done by John George Wingrove, and this is where it became a very popular location for fashionable people in London that used to come down, and this is where we start getting people dragged in from high-end residents of London. So I used to come down and use it as a gambling den, so I used to come down there, it was like little casinos and things like that. And this is where we come into our first person of interest into the hotel itself, and that was at the time the Prince of Wales, Edward. He come down and he'd been denied sort of much reputation. He'd thrown himself into the arms of many women at the time, and they're coming into sort of a lot of drinking and gambling, and they used to come to the hotel, and that is where sort of all the gentry of the area would come down, and it got a reputation of a bit of a sordid place to go, but the name sort of stuck with the Royal Hotel from then on, and that's when it became the Royal Hotel. So this is about 1860s, I believe, that sort of time frame. But it had a reputation also for like bare knuckle fighting, and it became like a high class brothel in truth, and that's what it sort of was known for. Also around this sort of time, 1875, royal engineer, and around 1875, a gunner, Richard Coates, went up, right, I'm going to actually read this piece because I've tried to record it 5 times now, and I'm just going to read it straight off the screen. In 1875, Gunner Richard Coates from the Royal Artillery, who was stationed at the barracks in Purfleet, travelled a mile up the road to the Aveley School, where he tried to Alice Bogles. When she tried to resist him, he beat her to death in a cupboard. Richard Coates then carried her body back to Purfleet, where he tried to dispose of her body in the river, but was seen doing so and was arrested. Gunner Richard Coates was executed on 29th of March 1875. So I had to read that. I wrote that ages ago and I can't remember it, and I've tried to record it 5 times, but there you go, that is the information there. She's actually meant to haunt the school in Aveley, so we may cover that another time. So what also happened in 1859, right next to the Royal Hotel in Purfleet, was the training ship, the Cornwall, had been stationed there, and this was a place where boys were sent to train to get into the armed forces or into the navy. And during that time they used to get bedding sent over to them that was left over from other wars. So after the Boer War ended, all the bedding was sent to the training ship, and unfortunately on this occasion, I think it was about 1905 and 1906, a load of the bedding actually contained typhoid, and a load of boys on that place got really ill. Now officially only about 5 to 10 people actually were infected. The rumours and some historians will say up to 15 boys died, but officially it only affected between 5 to 10 people, and none of them actually died. But I say the rumours around the area at the time, where people were seeing people being carried off and buried locally, and the protection was put over the time to get rid of typhoid, would lead you to believe that people did actually die from this. So what brought me to the Royal Hotel Purfleet? It was actually being contacted by staff at the time regarding room 31. A lot of guests had reported hearing screaming, cries. They felt a horrible presence in the room. People would wake up, not just seeing people figures in the room, but they'd feel like the bed covers being tugged off of them. People would be brushing their hair and they'd feel something grab them from behind. So when we was looking into the history of this, there was a lot of reports about a young lady being killed in the room. Now what we looked at and what is sort of said about that is a young lady was either killed because she questioned her boyfriend over his gambling debts, or she was killed because he became jealous over something that she was doing. All we know that this lady was killed in that room, and it seemed to have left quite a dark impression. During the time we've been asked to investigate this, a few weeks prior to us getting there, one of the cleaners had been in the room and she'd made the bed, and she turned around to do something else in the room, but when she looked back, there's a whole solid impression of somebody sitting on the bed, and it actually was moving as if someone was actually there at that time. Of course, she freaked out, run out, and people were just like, well, that's room 31. Now, a lot of cleaners wouldn't actually go in there at the time, or they'd go in there and make sure there's other people with them. One of the other popular things that are reported from guests that do stay in that room is how cold it is. Now, there's no particular reason why this room is cold. It's not sort of out in a different part of the building, but guests will often require either the heating to be turned up or for extra heaters to be brought into that room because the temperature drops icy cold during the night. So much so that recently, even after the investigation happened, I was contacted by somebody once we put it up onto the website, that they said they could actually see their breath coming out of their mouth when they was talking. It was so cold in that room. Now, this is still apparently continuing to today. It's one of those sort of ghost stories that never seems to end and continue to get reports about, and that is the same thing about the whole place of the Royal Hotel. So down in the bar area, we also have a lot of the common things of glasses sliding across the room, things jumping off of shelves and smashing. I'd actually been speaking to two of the bar staff on the night, and one of the things they said that was very, very common was that when they used to put the pint glass down, obviously they'd slide off. Now, we know that moisture underneath a glass can cause that to happen anyway, but what it doesn't cause it to happen is to slide so fast it actually goes about 10 metres off the end of the bar and smash against the wall, which is apparently something that happens there quite regularly. Now, I know we set up cameras, we didn't capture anything, we put endless amounts of pints on the thing. Water, not beer. We weren't getting drunk on the night. No, we weren't doing spirits neither. So there's the only sort of thing we was trying to do was to film, get something actually on film, because it's great having all these stories about ghosts, but you can never seem to capture it. And it's so frustrating because you hear all these great stories and you go there to do an investigation and nothing happens. You know, and it comes back to that old thing that we have so many cameras and CCTV now that the ones that you do see on like websites, they're obviously so fake, and it's really annoying because you want to believe that there's ghosts because it's interesting. It gives you a bigger perspective of what life could be about, but the frustration point is that you can't get nothing on film. So one thing we did do on the investigation was we got our spiritualist mediums to go back to room 31 after being in the bar area to read out some passages from the Bible, and we tried everything to see if we could get anything to communicate. He said he picked up on the spirit, and he had sort of like a conversation, and we were able to ask him questions and he answered them. What I need to explain is that they had no idea where they were going. In fact, on this night we met at the Alsett Cock in Alsett, and that is what I told them, and they drove and they followed me down to the hotel. This information is not available. It's really hard to research the information when you've got to go to the back rooms of the Thurrock Museum and old newspapers to research this. It's not out there. You know, we're going back sort of 20 years now where, you know, the internet wasn't really full of all this sort of stuff really. It's still like in its infancy. And one of the conversations we had, I'm going to read it from the script. So Steve said he could contact this spirit, and the spirit was answering. So he was asked, this is to the boyfriend of the person who had been killed. How did you kill her? Strangled her? How did you strangle her? How did you strangle her? No, I can't. How did you strangle her? No, it's my punishment. We need to know. Hands. Was she having a go at you over your debts? Yes. Was she angry with you? She loved me. Have you asked for forgiveness from her? We are here together. Why have you not moved on? Because she loves me. What is your last name? No, I can't say. You'll bring No, I can't say. It'll bring shame on my family. What year were you here and what year was you on the throne? Too much. I believe he's God. You can't forgive what I did. I can't forgive what I did. So this is the conversation the medium had with the spirit. And another interesting thing that did happen that night, I knew where this room was, room 31. I was young when I knew about room 31. And I'd actually set the cameras up in a different room. Just to try and trick the mediums. Just try and get the mediums to go into the room and say, oh yeah, no, I can feel this, I can feel that. It sounds really bad trying to trick my own mediums, but it's that thing about if you're skeptical about something, like I am, I want more proof. So they'd been in that room that I set the cameras up, and he turned around and said, no, there's nothing there. But as I walked past the room down the bottom, there's a room there that I want to go back to. I went, okay, what room's that? And we walked down, and he pointed out to room 31 and said, I'm feeling an energy coming from room 31. Which sent shivers down my spine. He had identified that room, and I hadn't actually told him about it at all. One of the other common sightings we get is by the restaurant, and there's a balcony that runs alongside the restaurant, and a lot of staff see a figure near the end of the night, a figure standing at the end of the balcony walking towards them, and it never gets completed to them, and obviously they often freak out over it. But it's one of those common ones where people just say, oh yeah, you've seen the ghost. It doesn't take nothing away from how you're going to feel when you see that. It definitely creeped me out. We did stick a camera down there. We left it there all night. I think it was running for something like 9 hours. The video was running. We didn't capture nothing on there. Again, you get the same sort of things, the dust or the orbs that fall past the camera, but nothing really that would see anything sort of paranormal. When we did our investigation, we had the manager of the hotel with us, and they wanted us to go to the kitchen area because they'd had a lot of things go on in the kitchen area that they also believed they knew the identity of the ghost, which wasn't actually told to us. And I do know the identity now. I'm not going to bring it up in case it upsets anybody. But on the night, all I can say, there's a lot of temperature changes. You could feel the temperature change, and it would go up and down, up and down. And this was January. I'm not going to say, you weren't going to get cold spots and all that in the middle of winter. But what they reported and what the staff were reporting were things like panes flying off, cupboards opening and banging, someone really trying to make their presence known there. It wasn't just little subtle things. This was quite drastic measures, with cupboard doors like really crashing shut, fridge doors being open when they're vacuumed shut, things like that can't just be put down to weak hinges or a little bit of movement in the building. So these were things that they'd seen and felt. The other one was the voice, and apparently a lot of the staff had heard their own names being called when they were the only people in the hotel. So the only people down in the area, the kitchen. So they can hear their name, someone's shouting out their name, and there's no one else about. But one thing about this ghost, or all the things that was happening, because they believed they knew the identity of this person, and it was a person that had actually worked there recently in that time, they didn't feel threatened by it, because this person was known for playing practical jokes and making them jump. Unfortunately, that person had become very ill and moved to a care home, but died quite shortly afterwards. And the staff truly believed that he has come back to haunt the kitchen just to play tricks on them. So again, it would be things like they'd put an item down, they turned around and it was back to where it had been before they picked it up, things like that. So again, they wasn't scared by it because they believed they knew who it was, but they were just slightly creeped out regarding has he come back to haunt the area. So a common thing that also would happen in the hotel was of an evening, once everyone had gone to bed, the staff would pack up the bar, they'd sit down, they'd have a drink, and things would tend to go from okay to not so okay really quickly. They said they felt as if someone was telling them they'd been there too long. It's time for them to go home. So they used to feel the table start vibrating, and then glasses would jump off the table. Not slide, they would literally jump off the table. And people used to blame each other for banging the table, trying to knock stuff off. But they literally insist that it happened when people weren't near the table, and these glasses would literally pop up in the air. And when that sort of tends to happen, they're sort of, okay, yeah, it's time to go home now. You freak them out and they'd leave and finish up. Now on that night we did do a vigil there. Me and Dave actually sat there for a couple of hours. Nothing happened at all. Also, what we did do in that investigation was to sit around the table and do the how you say this, the table tipping. Also done a thing where we put the glass in the middle of the table. What we did do in that investigation was put glass in the middle of the table to see if we could get it to move. Now people say, put your finger on the glass and it moves around, but to me that can be influenced by other people. So what I got a load of copper rods, very, very thin copper rods that you could all hold by your fingertips, and we placed the tips of that onto the glass to see if it moved. It didn't move. So I don't know if it's just a failure thing, or I just took out the possibility out of the equation that people were pushing themselves. But in one way it was an interesting result, because people before us had said they'd had the glass flying around the table. As soon as we took out the possibility of people being able to push it, it didn't happen. One of the things that did happen once the investigation ended was we were contacted by staff at the hotel that had said that the Bible that Steve had been reading from, Steve's our medium, has appeared on the bed and was open at page 431, which is the actual page that Steve had read from. And no one knew that apart from us and the manager at the hotel at the time that had been in that room. And it wasn't her who found it was actually the cleaner. And she came down and reported it to the manager and said, oh look, things are still happening in that room. I think they had the belief that once we'd been there, these sort of things would stop happening. And what obviously it led to was a lot more reports of stuff going on in that hotel. And to this day I still get calls about the Royal Hotel with strange things going on. It's an interesting one for you to go and look at yourself. So I don't know if you can book room 31, but it'd be worth a go. But the whole area has got a sense about it, and obviously it's got a long history. And not to say a dark history, I guess a mischievous history, with sort of been known as a high class brothel, things like that. Another thing that we found out after the investigation ended was that there was a rumour at the time the murder that had taken place in that hotel room, room 31, was actually committed by someone in higher powers, maybe a politician or somebody that had great influence, and the murder had been covered up. So that's about it. Thank you for watching the video. Again, if you like it, give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.